Creating a habitat-friendly, bountiful garden. Supply your kitchen with fresh produce grown in your own garden. Invite the songbirds, butterflies, and beneficial insects to move into a nature-friendly habitat. Manage pests, big and small, without the use of pesticides. From seed to fork, tips on growing your own. The wildlife habitat with its bird boxes, bubbling water, natural leaf mulch, and a palette of nectar and pollen will attract a cast of characters. Moving water is essential to attracting wildlife. These small bowls with solar-operated bubblers are visited by birds and insects year-round. Provide water at ground level for the lizards and smaller animals that visit the garden. I grow all my fruit and vegetables in a garden on a quarter acre with a large house and a pool. Every day starts with a cup of coffee and a bowl of fruit. Followed by a tour of the garden. I visit each section looking for wet areas indicating an irrigation leak, drooping leaves showing underwater areas, munched or curled leaves with aphids and ant colonies farming the aphids, yellow leaves needing some nitrogen or iron, gopher activity, and the occasional weed that needs pulling. I grow a succession of annuals and perennial flowers, each with its unique nectar and pollen proteins. Insects prefer a flat place to land and pollen that is easily accessible. Calendulas are first to bloom at the tail end of winter. They attract pollinators and beneficial insects to the garden. Here are some of the flowers that are perennials or will self-seed, returning annually. Cilantro attracts beneficial insects, including hoverflies. The adult hoverfly lays its eggs on leaves near aphid colonies. In their larval stage, they prey on aphids. Be sure to remove cilantro flowers before they drop too many seeds, or harvest the seeds to use as coriander spice. Ranunculus can be planted in October and will bloom in early April. When done, let flowers dry and keep the corms in a paper bag to plant next fall. The honeybees are attracted to the poppies and bathe in its pollen. The seed pod will set holes at the top and the seeds will pour out like a salt shaker. Collect the seeds and store in a dry paper bag. Spread thinly from December through February, right before a rain. In late spring, perennials like Maltese cross and feverfew appear. These blooms last a long time. Tropical milkweed comes in yellow and orange. New studies suggest that monarchs are overwintering in the Bay Area, and it is best to cut the milkweed down in early summer when the butterflies are in their northern home, so it is available for the caterpillars in the winter. Both the yellow and orange milkweed plants will self-seed. It is best to deadhead continuously and avoid the milkweed bugs. A favorite of insects, lavender, has a long bloom season. Each variety has its own bloom window. When done, cut back to green leaves to avoid a woody appearance. The spent blooms can be arranged in a vase and will bring the lavender scent indoors. Newer cultivars of Alstroemeria flowers do not spread out of control. To encourage continued flowers, yank faded blooms at the stem. The last of the spring blooms are the Clarkia, also called farewell to spring. If left to drop seed, they will return next year, or let flowers set seed, then pour into a bag to store for next year. When winter rains arrive, spread seeds just before a rain. Perennial blanket flower and asters bloom from early summer to early fall. Cosmos and Yarrow will provide ongoing blooms in the heat of summer. Deadhead to keep blooms going. Deadhead zinnias to prolong the flowering season. Spent blooms can be kept for seeds. Colors may not come true. Rudbeckia and Scabiosa flowers are perennials that will bloom from late summer into late fall, prolonging the season with color and pollen. The year-long blooms will attract many visitors to the garden. Chipmunks are rarely seen in our neighborhood. Songbirds like wrens, chickadees, and towhees will select their nesting sites and often return yearly. A nuthatch pair has been returning to our nest box for the past 4 years. They work the soil, turning over leaves and aiding in the decomposition. They also leave little bits of nitrogen-filled droppings. Unlike the chickadees who take advantage of the nest boxes, towhees prefer building their nests in the dense foliage of the rosebush. A suet feeder hanging in front of our dining room window shows the scrub jay is a regular visitor. Mourning doves are great patrollers of the garden, leaving their poops to enrich the soil. They nest by piling sticks near the eaves. Mom and Dad have been raising young ones from this spot for several years. This young one is getting the time to leave the nest talk. It's a little bit stressful for Junior. Inspired by a visit to the monarch sanctuary in Mexico, I've created a nursery for monarchs. In my monarch nursery, I grow and distribute milkweed plants to neighbors and friends. The monarchs visit in early spring, then return in late summer, and stay through the end of fall. The female monarchs will spend the day dancing around our garden, visiting and tasting each and every milkweed and leaving her eggs behind. The males come around looking for love. The New York Times featured a study that found monarch populations have been able to recover enough during the summer breeding season to make up for winter declines. The monarch caterpillar will work its way up and down the plant, consuming the leaves. When it is ready to form a chrysalis, it will leave the milkweed and find a hidden place to hang. When they emerge as a butterfly, they loop the garden, then head towards the Santa Cruz Mountains. In late summer, we see them daily, either just emerging or visiting the milkweed to lay eggs. In addition to the honeybees, we have numerous native bees and bumblebees living in our garden. The garden is abuzz with flying insects, all doing their bit. When they swarm, honeybees are at their gentlest. They don't have a hive to defend, they have full tummies, and they are just out looking for a new home. The queen bee and about half of the worker bees will leave the old hive in a big cloud of swirling bees and look for a branch to hang out on while scouts go off in search of a new home. These scouts will explore various potential new sites. They'll come back to the cluster and do their waggle dance advertising what they found and how good it is. Eventually, the scout bees will all come to a consensus on what the best new home is, and when that happens, then the cluster of bees will again form a whirling swarm and head off toward their new home. The bees that remain behind will make a new queen, and she will mate with the drones and begin to lay eggs, starting her own colony. Dragonflies are extremely agile and catch their prey mid-air. They eat mosquitoes, flies, and moths. Larger dragonflies will eat their own body weight in insect prey every day. Praying mantis can clean your garden of bad insects, but they can also devour good ones too. Some of these include leafhoppers, aphids, flies, crickets, grasshoppers, spiders, lizards, and mice. Their green color provides an excellent camouflage, and they usually hang around at the same spot in the garden. The shy lizards are ever present in our garden, scurrying into the shady cover of the undergrowth. They eat insects such as aphids. Spiders eat insects like aphids, wasps, beetles, mosquitoes, and flies. They also provide the sticky stuff hummingbirds use for their nests. They like to weave their nests between the tomato cages, keeping the pests away. Resist the urge to take them out. Skunks are nocturnal and stay within a 2-mile area near where they were born. Skunks eat insects, moles, grubs, beetles, and small rodents, helping keep the mice population in check. They may aerate your soil as they dig holes looking for those moles and grubs. Like the skunk, the opossum is nocturnal. Opossums eat snails, slugs, insects, and sometimes even small rodents, and can clean up fruit that has fallen off trees. Opossums can climb trees and love avocados as much as humans do. The western tiger swallowtail visits the garden to feast on the flowers. Our visitor was a male. The Anna swallowtail lays its eggs on fennel, and the caterpillars munch away at the fennel leaves. It is more black across the top than the western swallowtail. During the 2-year construction project across the street, all the gophers moved into my yard. I learned that a gopher visits its entire tunnel every 24 hours. So if you set a trap and there is no action, you may want to move it. The entry hole is always off the main tunnel, and the trap needs to be set in both directions in the main tunnel. Some traps work better than others. Be very careful handling the traps. Raised beds can be protected with a sheet of hardware cloth. Grow bags can be placed on top of hardware cloth to prevent the gopher from chewing through. In my garden, gophers have eaten brassicas, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, garlic, onion, and my fig tree roots. Basically, everything. Gopher baskets are another effective barrier. These stainless steel 1-gallon baskets are available at irrigation stores and Amazon. Be sure to have the basket rise well above the soil level so the gopher does not chomp at the stem and take the plant away. Tackling the squirrels is a matter of exclusion and trapping. Keep squirrels out of the garden with heavy-duty deer fence. I use polypropylene mesh fencing 7 feet tall and 100 feet long with a mesh opening of 5/8 by 3/4 inch. By angling the net outward, the squirrels can't climb up the tree stake. We added a barrier so the squirrels can't enter the enclosure by climbing up and down the tree. It is also meant to keep the squirrels away from the nuthatch nest box. When trapping squirrels, select a runway where they are often seen. Bait with peanuts in a shell. Remove and bury as soon as the trap has sprung. The key to a bountiful harvest is having a nutrient-rich, loose soil. A couple of weeks before planting an area, I amend the soil by burying my kitchen scraps in a shallow trench. The shallow trench allows me to check that the soil is moist, not dry or wet, at a depth of 4 to 6 inches. They decompose quickly, returning nutrients to the soil. The pile of soil I used to cover the hole will make a small mound, but will settle back down once the worms have done their job. This is how I have converted my hard pan into lovely fertile soil all around my garden. A benefit of burying my kitchen scraps is a surprise volunteers that sprout in the garden. Last year's corn has sprouted in amongst the purple broccoli. The three plants are close together and may produce a few ears of corn. You may recognize this photo in Robert Kourik's garden books. I moved to growing tomatoes in raised beds to get around the verticillium wilt that had infected my soil. I recently added hardware cloth after a gopher munched the roots of my tomatoes. The bed is filled with Garrett's farm horse manure, as tomatoes will grow in compost and do not need soil. This avoids the verticillium wilt bacteria. For aphid-infested plants that are not under netting, use plant-based soap solution to treat the leaves as soon as aphids begin to appear. Spinach, beets, and chard are protected in a raised bed lined with hardware cloth with an electric current run by a battery to keep out the slugs and snails, and netting to keep out the leaf miner damage, shown at the bottom right. If one leaf escapes and the aphids find it, the entire bed will be completely overwhelmed with aphids, as no one will be there to hold them off. Everything needs to be pulled out, as you can never get rid of all the aphids. In early mornings, if the temperature is below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, most insects are inactive and it is safe to lift the netting. I harvest the spinach and chard by cutting back the large leaves and letting the plants regrow. This is often called cut and come back. Beet seeds will often germinate multiple plants. By feeling the size of the beet, I pull out the largest and leave the others to size up. Clean from leaf miner, we enjoy the leaves, stem, and roots. Beets are easy to grow year-round. Keeping the leaf miner out makes for a happy, healthy crop. A gopher-protected raised bed with loose sandy soil for carrots. Perfect for a root-bound spot under the redwood tree. Bug hotel for native insects. The borage is a favorite for the bees, but needs to be yanked out before the seeds take over the entire garden. Harvest carrots over the summer months and replant in the fall. A dinner fresh from the garden. The in-ground vegetable rows have 1-gallon gopher baskets 18 inches apart for good air circulation. Repurposed redwood fence boards protect the soil structure when I walk between the rows. The perimeter is lined with insectary plants to attract beneficial insects year-round. Control your irrigation online. Get alerts when battery is dead. Update your watering duration based on evapotranspiration. I'm a fan of daily watering. I signed up for the CIMIS website for a daily email that shows satellite evapotranspiration in my garden. From this, I calculate how long to run the irrigation to replenish the soil moisture. Another thing is an inline irrigation hose that won't clog. A variety of connectors make converting a lawn sprinkler system to drip simple. When to start seed chart is available at the Santa Clara Master Gardener website. Check here to select when to start seedlings and plan your summer crop. Brassicas include Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, and cauliflower. Space 18 inches apart to allow for good air circulation and add insectary plants to protect from pests. Cauliflower comes in white, yellow, and purple. All delicious. Pick before bloom begins to open into flowers. Transplant in late summer for a spring harvest or in early spring for late summer harvest. The cabbage white butterfly lays its eggs on brassicas, creating larvae that will devour the leaves of brassica plants. Protect the young plants from being eaten. Kale leaves can be harvested as cut and come back over a long period of time. Monitor kale and cauliflower and harvest before they bolt. In 2020, the Master Gardeners were unable to hold the Spring Garden Market. I bought one of every kind of pepper and had a bumper crop. I have taken a pause from growing peppers, but this one volunteered in my gardenia pot. Saved seeds will vary in degree of heat. Eggplant seeds require heat to germinate and are ready to transplant in 8 weeks. I buy my plants from the 4-H Club. Eggplants come in round or Asian varieties. Eggplants are a favorite of gophers. Be sure to have the gopher basket extend above the soil. Eggplants are the last of the summer crop. Tree stakes should be removed after 2 to 3 years as they are no longer needed. Repurpose the tree stakes for a pea structure for peas to climb. Pick often to encourage continued flowering and new crop. After the fall crop is harvested, cut shoots by half and they will grow and set another crop in early spring. When these are done, reseed for spring crop. The snow pea pods are edible, delicious cooked or raw. Purple pods are fun, but the pods are not edible. The peas inside are delicious. Start peas in containers so they are not eaten by the ever-present mourning doves as they germinate. After transplanting, plants often droop when exposed to sun. Transfer plants in cooler hours at the end of the day or in the very early morning and provide a hat to shade them for 3 to 4 days. Lift the hat to check up on them and provide additional water if they are struggling. Remove the hat when they have perked up. Alternatively, use netting to protect bean and pea seedlings from becoming bird food. With climate change and warmer days, it's hard to decide, is it time for peas or beans? Try both and see what comes up. Too warm for peas, time for beans. Pole green beans like to climb and need continuous picking to continue to provide from early summer through late fall. Repurposed bicycle wheels and a bamboo stake make for a nice stand to hang the garden twine. Red yarn holds up great and prevents the accidental clipping during harvest. I like to grow emerald pole beans. They are very easy to grow and very tender. At the end of the season, I set aside some seeds for next year. Store in a paper envelope to keep dry. Bush beans are easy to grow. Start indoors in April or direct seed in May or June. Dry a few at the end of the season to replant next summer. Grow bags are great for limited garden spaces. A winter crop of potatoes can be grown in grow bags against a protective wall. Like tomatoes, potatoes can be grown in compost without soil. What you can grow in an Amazon 20-inch grow bag. There are some great apps that allow you to ID volunteers. This is a potato. We dumped out the grow bags and a few stayed and sprouted. Shallots and onions are seeded in the fall for a midsummer harvest. Lift carefully with roots and let dry in the sun. Store in a cardboard box. keep in a cool, dark place. There are many cultivars of garlic, from the strong brown turkey to the mild elephant garlic. Plant garlic around Thanksgiving. Stop watering on Mother's Day and harvest on Father's Day. Set to fully dry in the sun. Store with roots in paper bag or cardboard box in a cold, dark place. Save a few for planting the following fall. Here is a chart that shows the temperature range for seedlings to emerge. Tomatoes will emerge in 6 days at 77 degrees Fahrenheit. When starting tomatoes indoor, be sure to pick a warm spot for quick germination. Tomatoes require 6 weeks from seed to transplant and should go out into the garden in May, possibly in April, though there is still a risk of frost. Start seeds in March. Clean containers and punch holes for drainage. If reusing, rinse with water and 30% bleach. Ensure there's plenty of holes for water uptake and good drainage. Use sterile soil. Perlite can be added for improved drainage, and vermiculite can be added to increase water retention. Place seeds on top of soil or a 1/4 inch down and lightly cover and press so they make contact with soil. Water from below by placing in a tray for the water to wick up. Leave in water bath for up to 30 minutes. Allow soil to drain and oxygen to reach the roots before watering again. Seeds will begin to sprout in 3 to 6 days. When pot is light, place in water bath for 15 to 30 minutes till it is heavy again. Avoid damping off by always watering from below and never letting the topsoil get damp for bacteria to grow. Up pot when true leaves emerge. Plant in deep containers and bury part of the stem so it can put out more roots. Bring indoors at night to avoid a freeze. Texas cages come in 2 stackable 3 feet parts for 6 feet of support. Lower leaves should be removed for air circulation as the plants push up. Self-pollination can occur with wind or if you shake the flowers. Fruit set requires night temperatures to be above 55 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 nights in a row. When days hit 85 degrees Fahrenheit to 90 degrees Fahrenheit and nights hover above 75 degrees Fahrenheit, tomato flowers often fail to pollinate, then drop. If night temperatures are above 55, they will begin to size up. Providing water with movement will deter the birds from pecking the tomatoes. They may perch on the cages and perhaps feed on the spiders. In late July, the fruit will begin to color. Prune the lower vegetation to allow for airflow and find the tomatoes. I grow beefsteak tomatoes for eating fresh and Roma tomatoes for cooking. For my soup, I gather fresh basil, hot pepper, sweet pepper, Roma tomatoes, and a lemon. Add cherry tomatoes that had fallen from the vine and cook slowly in a crock pot. Pour into hot jars and enjoy on a cold winter day. Seeds can be saved by putting the pulp and seeds in water and letting them sit for a few hours. The seeds will sink to the bottom and the pulp can be slowly poured out. Over a couple of days, add water and repeat until the water is clear and the seeds are all at the bottom. You can also let them sit for a week and the top will form a crust that you can scoop with all the pulp and the seeds will be on the bottom. Pour the clear water out and dump the wet seeds onto a pie plate where they won't stick. It's okay if some water goes into the pan with the seeds. It will evaporate and in a few days the seeds will be dry and are ready to be stored in a paper envelope. Write some notes on the envelope as to type of tomato and add the date. Store the envelope in a dry, cool, dark place. Seeds don't last forever. Shown are 12 seeds from each year. Older seeds may not germinate. Pick the best tasting tomatoes from your own garden and these will evolve and acclimate to your garden conditions. Basil is a great companion plant to grow with tomatoes. Both leaves and flowers are edible. Removing the flowers will keep your plant from becoming leggy. At the end of the season, collect the seeds for next year. The most abundant summer vegetable is squash. Both zucchini and squash will take 3 weeks from seedling to planting outdoor and can be transplanted as soon as true leaves begin to grow. To reduce germination time, use nail clippers to remove a tiny sliver of the seed and provide temperatures of 75 degrees Fahrenheit on a heating mat. Direct seed in May and June. Zucchini and squash are vigorous plants. Remove infected leaves of powdery mildew and control with a sulfur water spray. Male flowers will appear first on a thin stem. The female flowers are pollinated by insects who have visited the male flowers. Both zucchini and squash will produce a bounty of crop. They grow and grow and will get so big that even the chickens won't eat them. One way to slow down production is to cook the flowers. Alternatively, grow winter squash to enjoy all summer long and store for late fall and winter. Pack more into your garden by growing vertically. Harvest in the summertime for tenderness. Cook with the tiny seeds, stir fry, or bake. Or allow the skin to harden and save in a dry, cool place for winter. In late fall and winter, remove seeds and bake with skin. Winter squash can be baked and stored in the freezer. Thaw and reheat. To prevent powdery mildew, prune back older leaves and let the sun reach the young leaves emerging at the nodes of the old leaves. You will also uncover hidden bounty. A chance seedling can turn out to be exceptional, or maybe not. Order seeds that are known cultivars for your area and pay attention to the expiration date. Master Gardener's site has many excellent recommendations based on our trials. The winter squash will grow vigorously. I let it roam the orchard to provide shade, keeping the soil cool and acting as a weed barrier. Occasionally, it needs to be redirected off a tree. The secret of winter squash is that they taste better than summer squash when eaten young, but you must grow your own as they are not marketed when they are small and tender. The Master Gardeners of Santa Clara County run a hotline Monday through Friday. Call or email them with your garden questions. Thank you for joining me for my presentation.